Well, Adelaide used to be an affordable place to buy a home and raise a family. Sadly, not anymore.
Renting a home in Adelaide right now is as hard for some as buying.
Adelaide is still showing signs of a hot market with high market pressure.
New data shows Adelaide house prices are almost double what they were before the pandemic, and experts say there's no crash in sight.
Adelaide is the smallest of Australia's 5 major cities. However, Adelaide is the second best performer. In this episode, I'm going to give you all you need on Adelaide via 10 property market charts that we use in-house at Investigate to gauge a property market's performance. Stick around, because the best tips for success are coming up next. So smash the subscribe button and let's dive into the data and decode Adelaide's success together. Let's start off with Adelaide's chart on market pressure. So when we're looking at the market performance, there are 6 core indicators we'll look at. We firstly see price pressure, which showcases that there is a huge amount of price pressure because the more stretched out these curves are, the stronger the performance of that indicator. And now, of course, when you're growing at around 1% a month in market growth, that is annualizing to 12% plus growth. And if that happens here, that is boom territory. So that's clearly showing some high pressure to end the year in 2023. Now, that is meaning that things like days on market, so speed of selling, things are getting faster. That means there's also a good amount of buying activity, and it also means there is also a high amount of buying activity in comparison to listings in play. We move over to rental pressure. Rental pressure is very strong here. We see low vacancy rates, we see rents rising quickly, and that hasn't stopped and isn't likely to stop with vacancy rates below 1%. Rental yields. Now, from a cash flow perspective, if you compare it to the rest of the country, including the regions, Adelaide's not the highest scoring market. But when you compare it amongst the capital cities, it's up there as the top 2 or top 3 in the worst case when it comes to rental yields amongst the major capital cities of like Perth, Brisbane, that go alongside it for rental yields. We're still fairly affordable. Now, this is one thing that many people get wrong. They assume that just because Adelaide has had a strong amount of growth, the cycle's over. Well, no, there are 2 metrics that we look at. There is current listings and price pressure. If that listings level is extremely high in comparison to the past, then of course price pressure will ease off, but it hasn't yet. And then secondly is local affordability. We're still seeing local affordability at decent levels. Now, it's not the strongest it's been. Obviously, you'd have to go a few years back for that and interest rates down for that, but it's also not at the weakest levels either. So you can see affordability is still well placed. And remember, Adelaide is a major city, so you have multiple rings, and those outer rings naturally get a little bit more affordable the further out you go, because people don't just have the outer ring income that live in the outer ring location. They could be people who are in the mid ring of incomes in the past, moving to the outer ring and now choosing life there. So things can change constantly and that data doesn't keep up. Don't click away just yet. The most valuable insights are just around the corner. And so from this perspective, if you look at the first few charts, incoming supply as well, building approvals have actually increased a little in some parts of Adelaide, but still fairly balanced or above balance. So it's not too weak, not too strong. There still needs to be way more supply when you factor it in comparison to the current listings in Adelaide and then the growth cycle. So the growth cycle is not by any means in the earliest phases where it'd be stretched out. It's now in a hotter market, so it's becoming less of its early growth cycle. And as the time progresses, it'll come down to here and eventually become a weaker growth cycle because it's had a lot of growth. Now, when we look at the actual chart number 2, demographic and economic trends are the next chart to look at. So migration in Adelaide has actually been pretty positive in recent times. It's picked up and net overseas migration is remaining strong. Now, that's recovered quickly off the back of, the COVID lockdowns, as you can see in the chart, but we're also seeing the brain drain, they used to call it in Adelaide, when people would be leaving the city to go to other cities. That has halted. Essentially, Adelaide's not losing people at some mass rate like it was in the past. The next thing to look at here is chart number 3, which is the job markets. Job markets in Adelaide are an interesting part. You can see unemployment has fallen off the cliff, and this was the biggest change to the market. The job market in the past saw unemployment rates hover between 6 and 8% in some cases. So the local economy is one of the biggest contributors to success in the housing market, and you can see a very strong local economy in SA right now. Now we'll go to the next chart. How are things trending in short-term price changes and short-term days on market. So we saw days on market pick up a little bit in the earlier parts of the year. That was sort of the first half of this year, but days on market stabilized and is coming back down. We also saw trends of property markets and local offers in the months of December, January, and wow, the heat is back like it's never even paused or never even left. And in fact, it hasn't left. It's always continued the growth. It never had a step back year or a decline year. In 2022, when interest rates were raging up and increasing, Adelaide's property market grew double-digit percentages, so that's huge. And in 23, it still grew just below double-digit percentages, which is still strong. Chart 5, demand and supply. So when we look at demand and supply, we look at the two most important contributors. They are the sales volume chart, so how many deals are happening, and their number of for sale listings, how many listings are available. Because if you get both of them together, that is demand and that is supply, buying and availability. And that comes together to create a metric called housing inventory. Let's look at long-term supply trends. So we talked about building approval trends being sort of balanced. They've picked up a little bit in recent times, obviously not as high as the 21 pickup, but they've picked up. They're still low in the long-term scheme of things because we've seen building approvals remain quite low for some time, but that 2 to 3% mark is where things start to get balanced. However, because there's such a big shortage of established supply, even if new builds remain balanced, they just can't make any meaningful difference to the overall supply of the market. Therefore, supply is still relatively low across Adelaide as a whole. Brace yourself for what's coming up next. It's worth the wait. Going into chart 7, the long-term cycle of Adelaide over the last 10 years has just pipped the capital city averages. So capital city averages is 66.2, where the 10-year average for Adelaide is stronger than that. But the last 5-year average is most definitely stronger than than the national average in terms of capital cities. And buildings are now coming on. So now you get this huge impact. People can't afford to buy in the new growth positions temporarily. People have more builds coming to life. People aren't transacting much, and houses for sale are plentiful. That is when growth cycle ends. Combine that with a weakening economy and a weak job market, all that together smells like an end of a growth cycle. We can see rents, the rental crisis continues with extremely low vacancy rates and double-digit rental growth rates. Now, that can continue, obviously not at the same rates all the time, but for as long as rental vacancy rates are this low, the only direction that rents are going are up. If we go to chart 9, rental yields are at that capital city average, just a little bit below. Remember, Adelaide is a region of many regions, just like many other cities. So there are rental yield markets where you can get even 4 to 5% in more affordable parts of Adelaide. But that 4% plus is still around that mark. Now, amongst the capital city average, I'd say Perth and Darwin seem to be leading the race in rental yields. Adelaide sits in that third, and then Brisbane is in there, and then you get met with the rest. And so from this perspective here, Adelaide rental yields are still decent. They're not extremely weak, and this can add to the picture as well. If Adelaide rental yields are so low, then all of a sudden that also removes the attraction for investors. This is the part you don't want to skip. Trust me on this. Chart 10, long-term rental price range. So right now, Adelaide is outperforming the long-term rents by some time. So this could be perhaps one of those things where the rents calm down because they are substantially over 10 years outperforming the rental growth rates of the rest of the nation. But when it comes to the vacancy rates, they're so constricted, the rate of growth will likely slow, but it does not mean growth momentum slows completely because it's still so undersupplied. But what's in store for the next 6 months? As Greater Adelaide's house market is still showing signs of high pressure, there's low inventory and declining days on market. Combining that with the low vacancy rates, rents are expected to still grow and prices are expected to still grow. 2024, when you combine the consumer confidence, the strong job markets, the low stock levels, and of course the demand that's still there in Adelaide, 2024 is looking like another good year of strong price growth in Adelaide. The signs to keep out for, what I mentioned, were substantially rising listings, building approvals rising, a large weakening in the economy, combined by sales volumes dropping off a fair bit and affordability eroding. All these factors are not in the limelight right now. They will be in due course. However, at this stage, Adelaide's likely to enjoy another strong year of capital growth because of jobs, no supply, strong numbers, and affordability on the grand scheme of things. Additionally to this, did you know Adelaide is the 4th city in our market pressure review series? To explore Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane, click on the video of your choice displayed and stay tuned for the upcoming Perth edition. In fact, hit the subscribe button so you can get an alert as soon as it drops. And for the comprehensive insights, charts, and graphs seen in this video, I've actually dropped the link to the research report in this description. Click on the next video and we'll see you there.